Hello, I am Toby and this is Get Good With Me at Teaching English, and today we're going to be talking about games. Now this is what most of you are probably looking on YouTube for. The first thing is that there are two different ideas of what a game in a classroom should be. The first is an actual game and the second is an English learning activity. Now both are acceptable and it is good to have a nice balance between the two. These are going to be all of the games that I'm going to be covering in this episode. These are the simpler games, and you may have already played all of these before in fact, but I did throw in a couple of other variations, so even if you have played these before, you can keep watching and see if there are any other ways to play them that you haven't tried yet yourself. I would also like to mention that a big part of playing games is not so much the game itself, but how you present it. If you are excited yourself, hyping up the game while you are playing it, the students will most likely be more into it themselves too. Use your own discretion when you are choosing which games to play for your class. Now before we start, many of you are wondering how do you actually incorporate a game into the lesson. Now what you can do is have a simple question and answer, and if they do it correctly, then they can have a turn into game. Now what the whiteboard usually looks like in my classroom is something like this. Now the X's and O's represents questions that the student need to come up to the board and answer, and this could be whatever game you're playing. Now when they answer correctly, once every student has answered, you can give them the dice and they can roll it or give them a sticky ball or whatever your game is about. They can get a turn in playing it. This system can be used for any games and almost all of the games that I'm going to be talking about in my videos. Now many of you are wondering why I do this XO system. If you've been a teacher, you'll probably notice a lot of the students looking at each other's answers when they're writing on the board. Now by doing this, they can't look directly next to each other and they're forced to look at the question on top. For most classrooms, I try to keep an even amount of teams. That way it's more fair. Probably 5 students to a team, and they do compete in the game as a team. Now for smaller classes, you can have more individual styled games, but my classes are generally larger and so are yours, most likely. Now the first game I'm going to talk about is pretty simple. Most of you have played this as a child, or probably already have played it in your classroom. Snakes and Ladders. The first team to get to this star wins the game and can receive whatever reward you want to give them. Now, to make this game more interesting, you can draw more snakes. Just basically draw them anywhere. Just draw them more snakes. And it's a lot more fun when students fall all the way back down. And make sure to add in a couple of the ladders to make it more interesting also. Alright? The second game I'm going to talk about is 5 in a row with the same concept. The team who finishes first can draw their icon onto the board. And whichever team gets 5 in a row first gets another reward. This game many of you have already seen before is called a point race. Each magnet represents a team. They throw the dice, they move that amount of spaces, and they get the points of whatever spots they land on. You can also make a twist by throwing in a few special different marks, like a star, which means they have to sing or give you a card, or you give them all a card, or you can basically add in your own twist. This one is going to be your usual sticky ball game. Now there are many variations more than this. You can come up with your own. Is to just, every time the students answer a question, they get a sticky ball and they can throw it, and whatever part they throw at, they get a point. So for this one, 10, 20, 30, 50 or whatever you want to say. This is going to be another variation, same game, alright? That's the cool thing about most games. You can play the same game over and over again, but just change a little part about it and students will feel like it's an entirely new game. This one's going to be a person version. They throw it at the eyes, maybe 20 points, a nose, 30 points, whatever you want. This is just a puzzle piece. Now let's talk about some off the whiteboard games. An easy backup game to have in your pocket is just to play big or small. You throw the dice once, and the student can also throw the dice, and whoever gets the bigger or whoever gets the lower number, or you can even have the students decide, wins that round. There's actually a lot of gambling games that you can play in the classroom, and any board games that you've played before, you can actually probably convert it into a whiteboard game. That's where I got a lot of my game ideas, such as Jeopardy! For those of you who don't know what Jeopardy is, it looks a little something like this. The top here, you can write in your own different category: grammar, vocabulary, random. I love the random column. You can just write anything in there, how old you are, tall you are, and then they can pick a question. Each question corresponds with an amount of points. The higher the points, the more difficult the question will be. Rock, paper, scissors is another game that you can play off the whiteboard. That's it for this video of playing games. I know today's games are a lot more simpler and games that you have already come up with, but we gotta start somewhere, right? I hope you'll join me next time for a couple more interesting and maybe some newer games for you. I'll also try to add in more variations, so if you run out of ideas, you can just change your old games and come up with a few new ones. Thank you for watching, and please leave your comments, suggestions, questions, and whatever you have in the section down below. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, hate, do what you need to do, and let me know what games you play in your classroom. Thank you for watching. This is Get Good With Me at Teaching English.